Hello, everybody. I hope you sit back, watch the craft while I talk to you about today. Today is Friday, November the 13th. Yes, it is Friday the 13th. No one knows for sure exactly where the superstition came from, but all the negative karma began centuries ago. Now, I'm not even going to get into all the Friday the 13th movies or none of that here. We're just going to talk about what I've come up with on the different things that I found during research about Friday the 13th. Last year on Friday the 13th, there was a full moon, and so many bizarre things occurred on this night, from just good old-fashioned fun to satanic worship, especially in our area. Research even shows that the economy loses almost $1 billion a year because people won't travel or shop or do anything or even work on Friday the 13th. I'm kind of curious what will happen this year with everything that is going on, and what will the stock markets look like today. There are so many superstitions that people have, including walking under a ladder, having a black cat cross your path, or even breaking a mirror. Many places will not have a 13th floor or 13th room, or even have a 13th special on their menu. They simply skip it and go on to the next number. It is by belief that and fear that many people have that Friday the 13th brings bad luck. And add that to a black cat or a ladder, or worse, breaking a mirror. Can you imagine the fear that must overwhelm these people? Doing some research on the web, I found some information about this man who came up with a club in the 1900s. He called his club the 13 Club. The founder of the 13 Club, William Fowler, started his club because he wanted to end all of the fear that people had of the number 13. His goal was to show the world that the number 13 was nothing to be feared. This group of men would gather and have a meal on the 13th day of each month in the 13th room in his home, as no hotel would have a room 13. They had to enter the room in a way of walking under a ladder to get to their seats at the table. Here at the table, they were served a 13-course meal. So this man started this club with the goal to show that there was nothing wrong with the number 13. Just how awesome would it have been if he had included maybe, some black cats or broken mirrors, like maybe 13 of each? So I know that there are probably many of you out there that have had bad things happen to you on Friday the 13th. For me, I have had bad things happen to me on July 3rd for many years in a row. And for several years, I would not leave my home. I would not do dishes or housework. I literally sat on the couch, watched TV, made sure my kids were okay, and vegged out. Nothing was done by me because it wasn't happening. I started out with a car accident in 87, and it just tumbled from there every year on July 3rd for like 5 years in a row. So for me, that was my bad day. So there are people who won't leave their homes or even their beds on Friday the 13th. I found a couple of bizarre instances on the web. I will share them with you. I'm not sure if they are all true, but they're worth bringing these things up. So here are some famous Friday the 13th stories. On Friday, November 13th, 1829, a daredevil who made his fame by jumping off the cliff at Niagara Falls by the name of Sam Patch. He did this on October 17th, 1829. People were shocked by his stunt and loved it, and people started watching him and giving him money for doing his stunts. Kind of like a tip, you know. So he decided on Friday, November 13th, 1829, because everyone loved what he did, and he decided to jump into the Genesee River in New York State from the top of the Genesee Falls. You guys need to look this place up. Thousands of people came to watch Sam Patch jump, and they lined the falls and the river. So Sam Patch jumped, but he never resurfaced. People were shocked and stunned because he had always been successful. But on this day, Friday the 13th, he failed to resurface and lost his life. So a more recent bizarre Friday the 13th story is on Friday, October 13th in 1972. As you know, one of the biggest losses of our economy on Friday the 13th is in air flights. People don't want to fly on this day because of the fear of something happening. Can you imagine? Just think of the show Lost. How many of you watched this show? I did. I loved it. Yeah, okay. So, thinking of this, on this day, many can remember this day a plane crashed on the Andes Mountains. It was one of the most horrific plane crashes of its time. This plane had 45 passengers. 12 died from the crash. The next day, 5 more died from their injuries. Now, the weather in these mountains was freezing cold, and there were no resources. There was very little food or water, but they had a small little radio in which they could hear the searchers talk about the search, and then they could hear the searchers say that they were ending their search. Can you imagine sitting there and hearing them say that they were no longer going to come look for them? 72 days later, they were discovered by searchers and rescuers. A few survived, but most did not. So take a moment and go back and look at the history of this plane crash. So another one that was just 10 years ago on Tuesday, So take a moment and go back and look up the history of this horrific plane crash. So this one was just about 10 years ago on Friday, August 13th in 2010. And it has to do with nature. I love thunder and lightning storms. Did you know that you are less likely to be struck by lightning than a car crash? 1 in 3,000 chance. A 13-year-old boy was struck by lightning at a festival. So here is the bizarre part. He was struck by lightning at 1:13 p.m., which on a 24-hour clock is 13:13 on the 13th day of the month. How bizarre is that? So another little story, and today is actually the anniversary of this one. 50 years ago today, one of the deadliest tropical storms in history to that date, on Friday, November the 13th, 1970. A giant cyclone struck Bangladesh. This giant cyclone killed at least 300,000 people. Surges were up to 16 feet high. Can you imagine the terror that these people went through? We have had some of these terrible floods here in our area, but 50 years ago, there was no warning for these people to speak of. There was nothing like we have these days. People were climbing trees to flee from the flooding waters. And because many couldn't hold on, either because of winds or the rain or just pure exhaustion, they were swept away. Can you imagine having been in that? That was 50 years ago today, on Friday the 13th, November 1970. The last thing I'm going to share with you is actually a prediction. And I hope you don't get too freaked out, but I've heard about this before, and it's very hard to find information on it because they're keeping it kind of low key. And it is a prediction that on April 13th, 2029, which is a Friday the April 13th, 2029, which is just less than 9 years from now, an asteroid that the scientists, is that the right word? Anyways, they call this asteroid 99942 Apophis, is going to pass 29,000 kilometers away from the Earth. That is closer than any of the satellites that are in Earth's orbit. So they really aren't seeming to be a whole lot of worried about it. You know, they're kind of like, it's so far off in time. We have lots of time to spare, right? That's kind of how they are looking at this. To me, I think they need to be a little more concerned. And it is really hard to find information on this. So look it up for yourself, guys. Do a lot of Google research and check out this information on this asteroid, 99942 Apophis. And I hope everybody has taken time to enjoy this, watch this little craft, and watch me turn this little Dollar Tree bells that don't have little jingly things into actually jingle bells to use. I hope everyone has an absolute most wonderful Friday the 13th. Everybody, have a wonderful day. Be kind to each other. And remember, how you treat others reflects on how you are, not on how the person is that you're being rude to. Bye, everybody. Take care. Have fun today.